Hello everyone. Today we are going to look at Bitbucket with SourceTree. Bitbucket is a cloud offering, remote repository, and SourceTree is an open source one from Atlassian, which you could download and use for your push and pull and work with Git repository, any kind of repository for that matter. You don't have to be tied to Bitbucket. You can use it with GitHub or GitLabs or any other repository, and it is a pretty GUI which gets most of your job done. That's the reason I love SourceTree. It doesn't matter what underlying technology you're using for your development. Uh, Eclipse, Android Studio, Intelligence, Visual Studio Code. It doesn't matter what kind of IDE you use or what kind of development you do. You can use the SourceTree to check in and check out code with any kind of remote repository. And then we are going to look at Bitbucket and SourceTree in this session. Let's get started. So the topic we are going to cover with Bitbucket with SourceTree is as follows. So as I'm showing on my screen, we're going to see how to clone a repository. I mean, there are three options. You can clone, create, add a local repository, or create a whole new repository. But generally you end up in cloning a repository. That's what I'm going to show in this demo. And then I'm going to get into commenting your code, adding your code into a branch and stuff like that. And then creation of branches, and we would create. I'm going to use the Git flow so that that's one of the good thing with SourceTree is that it has Git flow, and by it default it gives you what an enterprise org would have a flow setup like. So you can tweak that if you want, but that gets the ball rolling for me. So generally most of the enterprise end up in using what Git flow has to offer. So we'll use Git flow to create the branch, and I'll be showing that to you. And then we are going to pull and push the code. I mean, that's what you're going to do as a developer. And then it's going to be a pull request. So when you are moving from your future branch into your development branch, generally you tend to do a pull request. So you have a master branch, which is your production code. Let's say development branch is your development code. Generally people tend to create a future branch where they would code as a developer and merge into development branch and do the QA testing and stuff like that. So we would be doing a pull request so that there's a code review done, and then the merge happens to the development branch. So we are going to see that, and as I touch the next topic, it's going to be merge with and without conflict. So we are going to use SourceTree to do all these, and except for the merge you would be using your IDE, which is more convenient generally when you merge code. So let's get started. Let's start with the Bitbucket. So I created a repository called Bitbucket with SourceTree with the name of that, and there's only a readme file, and for this example we might be able to use this readme file or create a new file. We would see what we will end up in doing, but to test with all the check-in and check-out. So this is a basic repository I have. So the first thing what we are going to do here is we are going to clone this to SourceTree. So the first thing you would do is to clone, and it by default shows you that you could use a SourceTree to clone into a Git or the other client into Windows. So I'm going to use the clone to SourceTree. It's going to confirm. So it would try to open up SourceTree and try to set you up in the right path already. So my account got added, and if you're setting up first time, it might ask you username, password, and it brought all the repository that I'm working on this account with. So the repository we were interested is this. So it's showing all, it just started showing all the repository that is in the remote. So if you need to see that you are in the remote tab, your local machine doesn't have those, you're just in the remote. So you have to clone it so that it comes to your local machine. So the repository we are interested in is this. So I'm going to clone this. Click on this clone button now. So it's going to say, hey, you want to clone. So I'm not going to use the agent, so I would try to use um, the HTTPS protocol, because if you are using SSH agent, you need to set up a private public key. I would put another video how to set it up, but for now I'm not going to use that. So I'm going to cancel all this out, and so this is a URL for SSH. So we would need in this case a URL for HTTPS, and good that we had this use case so that we can show you how that works. So see, this was SSH. I'm going to go to HTTPS and copy that URL into Bitbucket, and I'm going to use this HTTPS to clone into my repository instead of SSH. So it's going to make sure that this repository path is good, and then I'm going to clone it to, let's say in my case, I'm going to clone it to the D drive, and I'm going to name the folder as the same to be consistent with the name of the repository. You don't have to be the same, have to have the same name, so I'm going to clone it. So you can see the detailed view here. One of the good thing about SourceTree that is it makes your life so easy, just that um, um, you can get the ball rolling as a developer very fast than what you would think you would need to. So it checks out the master branch. It came with the readme file. There's nothing changed. So just to give an overview of this, it has all these menus, and the menus that you are interested in is like you can go to this tools option and look at this authentication, which authenticates different source. It could be GitHub, GitLabs, Bitbucket. You could add more authentication and add more servers to it. So it's kind of like it depends on what you want to do. You could authenticate with different providers there. So and then one of the thing I don't like about SourceTree is it creates too many windows, and sometimes it's tough to track. But these tabs show all the projects that you're working on. So the only project we are working on is this SourceTree. It gives you this one. This says this branch folder shows all the local branches. This remote branches shows what is in the remote, and where the head is, and which remote repository do we have. Stash is all this, stash is like, putting the code in a shelf and reusing it whenever you need. If you end up in having to develop for multiple futures, and your project manager pulls you in, it says go and build this, and you need to stash it somewhere, to work on the other future, which is a hot fix for you. So it kind of saves your code somewhere which you could apply it later, and we might be looking at that too if we get some time on that. So this is the basic IDE. So you can just commit all your changes. You can pull down from the remote repository to your local machine. You can push your code changes up into the repository. Fetch is kind of pull, but it is safe because it doesn't merge the code. So if you think about what pull is a combination of fetch and merge. So it does two commands at the same time. Once you get used to, you would just use the pull and push. As long as you know what you're doing, you'll be fine. And then merge is merging the branches, and branch shows all the branch tree and stuff like that. And tag is to tag. Like once you give a production bill, you would like to tag that as version 1.0.0. So that's all you have to know with the source tree for now. And these are settings and things. It says what remote repository it is connected to. If you click on this, it takes you to the remote repository where it is connected to. It's kind of loading now, but it just takes you to the remote repository when you click on that link. So those are what these are, and this is one of the important thing I want you to talk about. So you had only one master branch locally, and you have only one development branch on the remote also. You don't have much. It's just one check-in where we checked in the readme code is what we have. So whenever you start a project, I would recommend you to use the git flow. All it does, it kind of sets it up for professional development, and I love that button. So I'll show you what happens now. So when you click on this Git flow, it says, hey, your production branch is going to be your master, the development branch is going to be develop. You can rename that to development if you want to, and then anything that would create in a future would be prefixed with future. Anything that you would release would be prefixed with release. Anything if you create a branch with hotfix would be prefixed with that. And then version tagging prefix if you want to prefix each version tag that you're going to create. So I'm going to just use the default one and create. And when you do this, what it ends up in doing is that it set this whole setup for you. It's going to create a development branch. It's creating all this setup, and now it created the development branch. It checked you out as in you are in the development branch. You should not be in the master branch while you're in development. So that's what it did, and it you can just go to the master if you want to, but it took all the code in the master and dumped it into the development branch. And then if you click the git flow now, since you initialized that, it would say start a new feature, start a new release, start a new hotfix, and you can customize it if you want to. There's a lot of things you could do with this, but I mean this would be more than enough for most of the development. So that's what you have here. So since we are already here, let's create a new feature, because as a developer I should never be changing any code in the development branch directly. So let's say I'm going to create a new feature, and I say latest development branch is where I'm going to start from. I'm going to say future. I'm going to say create home page, right? Like I'm going to work on something. Let's say we are working on an HTML page and we're going to create a home page. So I'm going to create a future home page. That's what we're going to do now. So once you do that, and if you see, it created a future folder and created this future home page as as a branch. Now since you have all this set up now, the next thing you're going to do uh, is to push everything. So the thing is, like, all you did so far is all in the Git. It's not in the remote repository. Just to prove my point here, I would go here and close it and refresh this page. The only branch you would see is a master branch with let me log in. So the only branch you would see here would be the master branch with the readme, and you don't see any other branch or any other thing. So it's not pushed yet. Everything is in your Git, and it's kind of working with your Git. I would like to push it now. So if you click on this, it says there's a local master, there's a remote master. I see two local branches, but I don't see it in remote. You don't have anything to pick from, so it's empty. But when you say push, it's going to create the same name and the folder structure that you have in the local machine in the remote. I'm also saying that push all tags. So once you do that, it's going to try to push all the three branches into the remote with whatever names being consistent with the name and stuff. So if you see now and refresh your page, you would see that you have all the three branches: the master, the development. I don't see the future yet. Maybe I was hurrying into this. Let me see that. So I see only the two branches here. Let me go here and make sure I push the future branch. Oh, I did not push it. Sorry. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and push that really quickly. I thought I pushed it. But anyway. So I ended up in pushing my future branch too. So if you see, I mean, I'm going to also explain this now. So if you see this, this kind of shows all the branches, right? You can kind of see the current branch or all branch. It says this is the local branch, and origin master is the remote branch. Wherever you have the origin word, it's like it says that you can name it even your name, personal name. So but generally people tend to name it as origin so that it's consistent. So its origin means remote is what you should wrap your head around, and then you're going to say origin master, origin feature, origin develop, origin, and so it's all the remote branches. All these are, and this is the remote head. So, and then you have a master branch and a development branch here in the local. So kind of puts it all in one perspective, and we'll be seeing more how this plays out as we go. But it's a good thing to have a graphical representation here. So now you are checked out in your future branch, and you can get log into your folder now. So I'm going to use Visual Studio like a notepad. So I'm going to not use any of this feature in Visual Studio here, but I'm going to use like a notepad. So I'm going to open my project here, select, and all I have is a readme. And since I said this feature is going to be a home page, I'm going to just create like an index.html. And this HTML is going to be pretty simple. I'm going to say HTML. I'm going to say head, and I'm going to say body. I'm going to put an h3 tag over here. I'm going to say hello world. So we did all these code changes now. So let's go to the source tree, and we are checked out. One thing you would notice that it immediately pops out saying there is uncommitted changes, and the file status clearly says where you are. It says that there's a new file that came in, which is index.html, and then you can stage this, and it kind of also shows what's the content of it. So then you staged it, that is step 2, and then once you staged it, all you have to do is comment saying added a new home page. So you can commit it here. So this command says that this commit only commits it into the Git, not to the remote repository, right? So if you want to do two things at the same time, where you want to commit it and also push that code at the same time, you can do that. Like you can just say commit and then check this, what will push. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to keep it not push now. So let's commit this. So again, as I said, this future and this arrow shows that this is one ahead. So that arrow up, I mean, like you have made one commit here which is not there in this or anywhere. So and this also prompts you that you need to push this one commit up. If you make another commit, it would say 2 in both places, because you have 2 commits in your Git, but it's not yet pushed to the remote repository. So what I would do is I would like to push this changes, just pick the branch and just push it, so that that changes goes to your remote repository here. Now if I refresh my branch, I should see that there was a check-in that happened, a commit, and you could see that there is a new file added with all this, and if there was a pull request, we'll get to that, but it shows what all got added and what was the commit, and you can go inside the commit and see what happened. So it's very easy to walk this through and see what happened. So we basically did a code change and committed it into the source tree, and that was pretty straightforward here. And next we will move, and we also did the creation of the branches and see how it worked, and we also tried the pull push, but we didn't try the pull, and we will go ahead and try that later. So there are only 2 things missing now. We may need to do a pull request using GUI, and then merge, and then and then push pull the code. So let's work on those things next. As I said, the next thing we are going to look at is the pull, because we didn't pull anything. So in order to do a pull, we need to simulate something. Let's say this future homepage, there was a UI guy who was working on the HTML side. You are the developer, you are pulling database calls and pulling data from different database and showing it in the screen. So you both were working, so right, So let's say he made already a change and it's not in your computer, right? Like it's not there in your machine, but it's already there. He pushed it to, let's say, into your future branch. Assuming generally each future branch, you will not have too many developers working on a future branch, but let's make that hypothetical case that um, another developer was here and making a change. I'm just going to simulate this. So someone went inside your future branch and let's say they said, okay, let me make a change to this. So I'm going to say hello world, welcome user. So he just added another code, put it in a div probably. So and then he committed it, right? I'm doing this through directly here into the future branch because I want to simulate where you have some changes uh, in your repository which is not in your machine, and what happens in that case, right? Like we need to simulate that. I'm going to just now click the refresh button, so that let me click on this refresh remote status. So I just refreshed the remote status. So what happened was it went into my repository and found that there was some change that happened by another developer in the same future branch, if that was the case. If that happens, and then says that, you know what, you need to pull the code because there is something there. So the source tree is so useful this way that it kind of, as soon as you open, it says what you should be doing and helping you out all the way through. So I'm going to click on this pull request and say, yeah, get the code and merged it with my local future branch if there is any code changes. So if you go to your Visual Studio, which I'm using as an editor, you would not see that change because that happened in a remote repository. Your local machine doesn't know that's happening. So you could now go to SourceTree and say, yeah, go ahead and get that change and merge it with my code, pull. And I said, fetch would just get it, but it will not merge. So pull is a combination of fetch and merge. So it just pulled it and merged it. So if you now go to your notepad or whatever IDE you use, it would bring all the changes from the top. So all the changes in the repository was pulled down. So you are able to now see something um, important for you. So that's how you would do a pull. So the next topic we are going to cover is the pull request. So as a developer, you are working for an organization. Um, you would have like all these branches, right? You have a master branch, which is your production. You have your development branch, which is more for all the developers' code would be merged to the development branch, and QA and UAT testing happens. And the future branch is more like where your developer playground. You're writing all your code without hurting any other developer, and keep the ball rolling in your own future branch. So when you're done with your development and you want to ask the development team or like UAT testing or all kinds of testing, automation testing, doesn't matter what kind of testing you're doing, in order to do that you just need to do a pull request, because it's always recommended by Bitbucket, and that's a cool feature of Bitbucket where you can do a pull request and do a code review done before this code gets into a development branch. So we are going to do this pull request, which as I discussed in my slides, that I'll be covering that after the pull and push branch is this pull request. So you would be, as a developer, go in and create a pull request, and you would say, I want to take what I have in the future and I want to merge it with the development, and you can add description. So it says that you added an HTML page and you made some edits, so it kind of what you have in the future that's going to get merged to the development branch. So you would say, yeah, create a pull request. So what happens now is that when you create a pull request, you would put a reviewer. I know I missed to put a reviewer. I'm going to click on this edit button just to show what you would end up in putting a reviewer here who you want to review. And some people would like to close the branch because it gets clumsy if you have like hundreds of future branches. So just clean it out when you know close the branch and do that. So I'm not going to make any change. I'm going to leave this page because I already created a pull request. I just want to show that you can put a default. You can put a reviewer, or they could default what the reviewer should be. So once you have this pull request created, you would have an approver get an email if they are the approver or the default approver, and they would see an arrow that says that, hey, there is a pull request. Do you want to approve it, or something like that? You always see that when you log in as an approver. I would like to simulate that. Let me see if I can quickly simulate that here. So I'm going to go into Bitbucket. I might need to log in as a different user, and I hope that person is in my team. So I'm going to quickly log in with a demo account. So I have two demo account here which I've got created. So I'm going to go here, see if this user is a part of my project. So I don't have this user as part of my project, so he is not able to see the projects that I am sharing. So let me go ahead and see if I can add this person as a user in my project, right? Like, so I could go to the repository setting. I know I'm going a little sideways here, but it'll be very useful for you to see here. So I'm going to add this user as an admin here, and they need to approve the invitation so that they can be part of this repository. So what I'm going to do is, like, I'm going to just go ahead on the sideline and do that approval process in my other account, so that this person can partly now work on my code and review my code. So let me pretty quickly do that. So I went ahead and accepted that invitation. So now what should happen is I should be able to now refresh this page and see that that person is part of my team. I made him an admin, so he might be able to approve my code too. So let me refresh pretty quickly now, and see if that gets reflected. Yeah, he's part of my team now. So this person too would be able to approve my code. So let me now go into the browser as that person too, and let me see if I can see that repository in one of these. Okay, still having some refresh issues. Let me quickly refresh it again. Okay, yeah, he's able to see that. So he can now go in, and you can see this is another developer who is coming in here, and he's going to come here and say, oh, there is another a code review that I need to do. So that person, I made him an admin, so he could go there and say approve this, and since I approved it, and you would say, yeah, go ahead and merge to development and give a build for testing. So he could, yeah, give whatever comments he want. He looks at the code, he looks good. He already, I know I went ahead and uploaded. I just added the comment for fun. So that's all we wanted from this other user. So now if I go to my repository, I should be able to see that my pull request got approved. We'll go to my pull request, and so yeah, it got approved by that other person, and I'm able to see that got approved, and I'm good to go. So I could merge from this UI which I really recommend you don't do it. I mean, that would be not a good idea to merge using the UI. I generally recommend to use like SourceTree and the corresponding IDE that goes with it to merge the code if there is conflicts. I would never recommend you to use the UI unless you have very minor changes and you know what you're doing, and like click on this merge button, it will show you all this is a pretty straightforward change. You can end up in doing the merge here, but I don't want in my example to show the easy path, because you might be really merging a lot of code, and you would be using SourceTree and IDE to merge. So I would not use that, and let's go ahead and see how to merge the code using this. So again, my recommendation is always to refresh the remote repository, and there's a shortcut. You can just press Shift Alt R to do that. I just did it this way. So now you are ready now to merge your future branch into your development branch, right? Like you have all your code, and then you would like to merge into the development branch. The way you would do that would be to just, you would be active in your future branch, and just you right click your, you can right click on your development branch and say merge development into current branch. So if you see, the current branch is a future branch, so you're trying to merge this future branch into the development branch. So all you have to do is to click this button and just say merge development to into the current branch. So you just do that. So are you sure you want to merge development into your current branch? So you are actually merging the other way around. So you're merging, if I do that, what I'm doing is merging to merge the development into your current branch. So it will take whatever is in the development branch and merge into the current branch. I think what we want in this use case is that we should be in the development branch, and we should be merging this future branch into the into the development branch. So I'm going to be active on my development branch, and I'm going to say, hey, merge this into my current branch. If you see here, the current branch here is the development branch, and the future branch is what you want to merge into the development branch, right? So if you go back to the code, you just added this beautiful code. The development branch, all it has is this. You added this, so you would like to merge this into your development code. So going back to here, as I said, you would be in your development branch, and you would say that merge this future branch into your current branch, and it's saying, are you sure you want to merge future branch into your current branch? Yes, this time I'm right, because yeah, you do want to merge your future branch into your development branch, because the whole point was that we did all this code review and stuff was to move what you have in the future branch into the development branch. So that's the setup we have here, that we are going to merge the future branch into the development branch. So I'm going to say, you can create a new commit forward, and that's always a good practice to have a new commit for it, so that you can track that merge through a commit. So I went ahead and did that. So now it shows that, hey, did you see there was like three? So there were three commits that is in your local branch, which is not yet pushed to the remote, because all the commits that we had in our future, all the three commits that we had in the future got pushed to the development. So it got merged into the development. So we would like to push this to the remote repository. Let's go ahead and push the code into the remote repository, and yeah, it's pushed. Let me go back to my screen and go to source and make sure that the line that we just added into my develop branch is now there, like the extra line of code that we had. Yes, so it got merged. So this is to show you that how to, do a pull request, get that approval part going. The next thing you did was like uh, you were able to merge. Once the approval is done, you were able to merge the code from the future branch into the development branch, and that's how you do it in the source tree. And with source tree, it makes your life easy, and this graph is so easy. So it says the blue one is the development branch, the orange one or the red one is the future branch. So you created a future branch from the development branch here, then you made a commit to add a home page, and then you added some changes in your future branch, and then went ahead and merged the future branch into your development branch through a commit. So it just like shows so neatly what is happening. So it's this graph is like a story narrating you what these developers or what developers are doing. So if you get so used to this, you would know what this narrates, and you know who checked in, what got changed, and you will get used to this thing. And you can just look at the current branch, which is our development branch, to look at just from a standpoint of development, or you can just check out the future branch and look at just the standpoint of the future. So it kind of gives you a picture how you want to see it. You can say don't show me any remote things, just show the local ones. So it takes away all this origin keyword and all the origin. When the remote things happen, it just removes that away of your screen and keeps it clean. I mean, sometimes I would prefer to remove this remote branches so it's not clumsy and you know what's going on. As long as the remote and the local is in sync, you know what's going on. So so that's what this shows. And we covered the topic for cloning, committing, creation of the branches using Git flow, and how this plays out and how to push it. And we tried a pull by adding another developer adding another code. And then we tried, once all the future was developed by two developers in our use case, one in the UI, another in database. I mean, we had two lines of code basically. And we tried to do a code review with another user, and we then ended up in merging this. I know I kind of little bit took off by checking this out and merging here. And I initially showed you wrong, but you would end up sometime doing that. So the other use case, right? Let's say you were a developer, you're literally working on your future branch, and you're just focused. So if you see here, I'm in my future branch, you're just focusing on adding all this code here, but someone is developing a lot of code and putting it in your development branch. So you need to get that right. So I would recommend you to always check out your future branch and go to your development branch and say merge develop from into current branch, because so that you pull down all the latest changes from another developers who's adding to the development branch into your future branch so that you leave current. We did the other way around, because we were taking once the code review was done, we were taking all this code and putting it in the dev. But every morning when you start developing, or like whenever you want to get the latest code from the development, you should check out your future branch like how I'm showing, and then merge it to development, so that you don't have to do a code review for this, because you're just pulling down the code from the development into your future. So you don't have to go through the pull request or whatever it is, but um, you just need to do a merge so that you have the latest code from your development merged into your future. And another thing I forgot to mention was you don't even have to, sometimes you can just click on the create pull request once your development. Generally, if you have the settings right, it will take you to this remote thing and do the pull request for you. So if you set it up right, you would be able to get that ball rolling by just being in the IDE. You don't have to go into the browser to do some of those things, right? Like, which makes your life so easy that you would be using you know you would be just on your branch instead of coming here. You'll be trying to create a pull request just from the um, from the IDE of the source tree. Sorry. Uh, that's all I wanted to show you. So we kind of merged the code. The only thing we didn't cover now would be that we didn't do a conflict, right? We didn't have anything where we had a conflict. So maybe in the next thing what we would do is to create a conflict or simulate a creation of a conflict and test that out. I will set up the data for that, and we will meet you in the next thing where we will be discussing about the merge with conflicts. So we are going to look at resolving conflicts between developers between two branches. So this is very common that while you're working on your future branch, someone added a code in the development branch, or when you are doing a pull request, you end up in seeing that the other developers made some changes. So it could happen in few use cases, and I'm going to show an example of how a conflict could happen and how you could resolve it. So I simulated a use case for us to test here. So I have a home.html page which says hello test in my future branch. As you can see, I'm checked out in my future branch, and my code in a basic HTML home.html page shows that I have hello test. And when I go to my development branch, it is hello world. So it's the same line of code, same HTML page. There are two different values. So when I do a pull request now, from my future branch into my development branch, for example here, it should show that there is, I'm going to pick a reviewer in real time, and I'm going to do a pull request. But for this example, I'm not going to go through this complicated workflow. I just want to show you the use case of a conflict. So this is how it looks, and and uh, and you created a conflict now. You created a pull request now. But what happens is the reviewer would go in and say, let's say I want to simulate that the reviewer is going in and saying, oh, there is a merge conflict, the developer did not notice, or it happened after you checked in the code. When you did, there was no conflict. The reviewer was in a vacation and he came after 5 days and he's reviewing your code. And by then, a lot of developers checked in the same HTML page, a lot of code, and there is a conflict. So, and he comes in as a reviewer. Assume that I'm a reviewer. I come in and say I'm going to deny this. Sorry, I was in a vacation and looks like other developers have checked in new code into development branch, so you can't do a pull request. So he's going to deny your pull request. So your responsibility is to now go into your branch, make sure all the development changes, just talk to the other developer, whoever the other developers are, and check out in your branch. You should be in your branch and say that I want to pull down all the code from the development branch into my future branch before even me thinking about pushing the code in my future branch into the development branch. So I need to fix it in the bottom so that I can move up. So you can't fix it in the up. It's not a good practice. So you are in your future branch checked out. You're going to say merge development into the current branch. So you're pulling down the code. I know we already know that it's going to have a conflict. It's going to pop out in SourceTree and say, no, there's a conflict. You have a merge conflict in your working tree. So that we already knew about it. That's why my pull request was denied. So now you go in and say your Visual Studio and see it added all this fancy tag around it. It says that this is what you have in your branch, this is what you have in the dev branch. You are trying to pull down the code. What do you want to do? So I mean, Visual Studio has this fun stuff where you can just accept and deny, but I'm not going to use that feature. I'm assuming I'm in my notepad doing this. So I deleted all this code. I wanted my change as well as the other developers change. I'm going to say, yeah, that looks perfect for me now. And I am going to go to the code. I'm going to check at my file status. It shows that it should now show it as resolved, or you can mark it as resolved because we just cleaned it up. So I'm going to mark it as resolved and click OK, and then it's now resolved. Since now I can commit this, I'm going to say the merge. I merged everything in the development branch into my future branch, and I'm going to commit it. And I already clicked on the push changes, so it would have pushed that. It would have committed and pushed the code to the remote branch. Now I go into my remote branch, and I'm going to say I'm going to do another pull request this time, and it's going to work because I have the latest code from the dev merged in my future branch. So there's not going to be a conflict. So you don't see a conflict. So there you pick a reviewer, do a pull request. Hopefully it doesn't show a conflict because we just fixed that. That was the whole point of all this exercise, right? So again, never use the web UI to merge the code. I always recommend you to go to your a computer and do it, even if you are a release manager or whoever the build manager is. So now what you want is you want to push all the code in your future branch into the development branch. To do that, you should always be in your development branch. Wherever the code should end up being, that's where you should be checked out. So the bolded thing should be always where you want the final code to end up in. So you're going to click on whichever branch you want to merge the future branch into the development branch, create a commit for this merge, and click OK, and it should push all your code into the development. Whenever you see this 5, it means that there were 3 commits on the future branch, and all these commits that are in your local branch is behind the remote branch by 5. So the remote branch has 5 commits behind you. So if you do this push, it will push all these 5 commits into your remote repository. So I'm going to say, yeah, push all those 5 commits, which includes the commits on the future branch because we just merged. So it's going to push all the commits into your development branch, and we should be rock solid now. We just learned the most complex use case you could have in an enterprise organization where there was a conflict. You resolved the conflict in your future branch, and then you did the pull request, and then went ahead and merged again your future branch into your development branch, and voila, you're good. So that's all I wanted to cover with the SourceTree, and hope you got an idea of how to use a SourceTree IDE to do your regular check-in, check-out at your workplace. So thank you for listening in.